and welcome to today's program on living with chronic stress, which is such an important topic for our caregivers. I am joined today by gerontologist Sally Duplantier. Sally is the founder of Zing and has a mission to help older adults live their best lives longer through better nutrition, more movement, better sleep, less stress, and more social engagement. Sally is also the host of Wellness Wednesdays, a free service to the community that provides evidence-based programs related to healthy aging. Sally was recently named one of the top 10 entrepreneurs, breaking barriers and making a difference by LA Weekly. She is currently doing research related to health and well-being of family caregivers of Alzheimer's patients. Welcome, Sally.
Danielle, thank you so much for having me on your program. I'm delighted to be here.
Let's dive into the topic of chronic stress. It sounds like you have a lot of experience that is given your work as a gerontologist.
Yes, definitely. So as a gerontologist, I study the science of aging, and stress plays a key role in the way we age. But quite honestly, Danielle, not all stress is created equal.
Say more about that. What do you mean by not all stress is created equally?
So I'm going to talk about good stress and not so good stress. Good stress is acute stress. It's an adaptive response. So when we think about acute stress, back in the day, millions of years ago, it was our response to seeing a lion or a tiger and the fight or flight response when we are in kind of a life-threatening situation. And in that case, stress is very, very good. It gets our heart pumping, it gets our blood flowing, it mobilizes our limbs, it puts us into this kind of hyperactive state. That's acute stress. The other kind of stress is chronic stress. And I think that's what the caregivers are experiencing that work with Care Indeed. It's certainly what I've found in the caregivers I work with Alzheimer's patients. And this is the chronic day-to-day stress. And I bet you can give me examples of both. So what might be, I don't think many of your caregivers are chased by tigers anymore, but what would be an example of acute stress that they might experience?
Examples of acute stress, I think a caregiver experienced this about a week ago. Would it be like, say, locked out of a client's house and really trying to get in and concerned about their well-being?
Yes. I mean, Danielle, that's a perfect example. That's kind of that emergency situation in which the stress response is healthy. Now, what's happening, there are physiological changes going on to help have that caregiver be hyper alert. But then cortisol, which is a hormone in the body, it's associated with stress, but it actually turns that kind of hyper vigilant attitude off. In other words, cortisol plays a key role in kind of stopping the stress response because you wouldn't want to be stressed out all the time. But in the case of chronic stress, you are stressed out all the time. What might be some chronic stresses that your caregivers are experiencing?
Possibly the fact that they don't know if they can depend on hours each week, the changes of the client's schedule, what if there's a commute, the worrying of, do they have enough hours? Are they going to be late if there's a commute? What are they going to do at home with their family? A lot of our caregivers are actually parents, and they're doing both, working and then having to make sure they're taking care of kids at home.
Yeah,
would that be types of chronic?
Yes, and it's the day-to-day pressures, and it's not usually just one, it's all the things you described. In my world and the caregivers I've studied, I call it never and always alone, because family caregivers of Alzheimer's patients pretty much lose their social network to take care of their loved one. So they lose the other people around them, but they're never alone because they're always caring for someone. And I describe this in an article that I wrote as a heavy mantle of responsibility that can't be shed. It's not like you can just take it off like a coat and put it aside. You continue to wear it and it wears you down. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I know that some caregivers take their work home with them too.
Yeah.
They worry about their clients if there was a change in condition or if something's going on, happen a fall, but they also are now working with their families and having to do that. Is that what you're referring to when you talk about the mantle of responsibility?
Yeah, absolutely. And this extra care, this chronic stress of caregiving comes at a cost. So there are physiological manifestations. So caregivers may feel fatigued, they may feel anxious, they may have trouble sleeping, or they may be extra sleepy. They may have just kind of a general sense of malaise. But what's happening is as they feel that, there are other underlying changes to their bodies that could put them at greater risk for heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, even dementia. So the challenge is that if we are experiencing chronic stress, as many caregivers do, um, it's going to impact their own health and well-being.
So, what should we do about this, Sally?
It's a great question. And I will say that it's not just like flip a switch and everything is going to be fine. I think there are strategies, I think there are tactics, and I think it starts with acknowledging that we care about caregiver burnout, we care about chronic stress. Tell me, Danielle, what are some of the things you're doing at Care Indeed to alleviate this or address it?
So, a few things that we had this support group where the caregivers actually shared each other, as well as Vanessa, our COO. We do check ins. It's really, really important that we know that the caregivers are not alone here. And the administrative staff is not there in that state of with the clients and what's going on, but we want to make sure that we're helping them walk through that, giving them, do they need time off? Are they trying to juggle too much, but they are afraid to ask? It's very, very important that they feel heard by us, they feel seen by us, that we acknowledge that being a caregiver is a really, really tough job. And so giving them that space to share and space to share with us as admin staff or with their other caregivers are certain, I think, some ways that we do try to help with this.
So, Danielle, what comes to my mind as I heard you talking are a couple things. First is that you genuinely care about the caregivers. And the second piece is that you're creating a safe place for people to have a dialogue about how they feel, including about how stressed out they may be. It's a challenge, I think, if your job is dependent on, maybe making a long commute or, having an extra long day. It's hard then to kind of quote unquote complain about that. But it sounds to me like in the work you're doing with caregivers, you want to know. And if something isn't working, it sounds like you at least want to acknowledge it and see what could be done. Am I right with that?
You are. What else could we do though, Sally?
Well, I have some tactics. So I think the overall strategy is the caring and the listening. I have some simple tactics. I talk in my work about stress a lot, and it would be great if I could tell people, well, just don't be stressed out. But like one of the techniques I use is breath work. And I have an experiment every time I speak. We do the mindful minute experiment. And I think we're going to do this live on this program, but we'll do it just for 30 seconds. And let's try it. Are you willing to try this experiment with me?
Yes.
Okay. So we both have to kind of sit comfortably and close our eyes, and I'll just walk you through this. And I just want you to start paying attention to your breath. The inhale and the exhale. Inhale and the exhale. And just kind of pay attention to the sounds you might hear around you. And if your mind wanders, that's okay. Just come back to the breath, the inhale and the exhale. And now open your eyes. How do you feel?
Slightly relaxed. My mind did wander, but it's slightly relaxed.
Yeah. That was about 30 seconds. It's a great little experiment. You can always take a mindful minute. It's this very portable experiment, but breath work is extremely important to our well-being. I was on the phone this morning with a very well-known sports medicine surgeon here in the Bay Area, and he was talking about the importance of breath work. He wasn't talking about things related to, orthopedic surgery. He was like, oh my gosh, we need more physicians who can help patients with breath work. So it's really important. So that's one. Now, and what I'm talking about here are tactics, in addition to what you said, which were strategies that can kind of help lift our mood. So, we can, as caregivers, what I've noticed in my work with caregivers, and what you've noticed probably, is that there may be times when they can be a little bit down and they just need some perking up. And a simple way to do that is with music. Music has the ability to upregulate or downregulate our parasympathetic nervous system, which will control the stress response. And so for your listeners today, I'm going to play something. And then you kind of tell me how you feel. You ready?
Yes.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here. You can take a break.
Okay, that was short. But what were you experiencing?
Movement. That song just makes you want to move regardless of what you're feeling.
It makes you want to move. It makes you want to smile. So just using music to help upregulate. The other thing that I do sometimes is I may have specific songs that, the words remind me of something. So if I'm having a bad day and nothing seems to be going right, I might listen to Taylor Swift, Shake It Off, something like that. So it's just that idea that music can be a helpful way to regulate stress. Now, if we are feeling super amped up, sometimes we're just really, really nervous, we may need to downregulate kind of the stress response and the feelings that we're having. So let me try one more here. I'm going to play this, and then you can tell me how you feel. And now tell me, what did you notice? What are you feeling?
This one's more calming. This one is more soothing. Classical music, I think, kind of does that with us, or with me specifically. It just kind of makes me a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, and it's not just you. So one of the reasons that classic music helps calm the nervous system is because the number of beats per minute in classical music is actually about the same as a resting heart rate. So there's a reason for that. So, what I'm sharing here is the fact that music can be used to kind of upregulate or downregulate mood, stress, and it's also a nice break. And then I'm going to share a third one. And I call this, again, it's a tactic for dealing with stress, but I call it Take a Joy Break. So I loved a book by Dr. Kelly McGonigal called The Joy of Movement. So she talks about how it not only helps our physical well-being, but our mental and emotional well-being to move. And I've given that a lot of thought. And I thought, boy, I am pretty sedentary during the day. I don't know about you, Danielle. Are you sedentary during the day? Yeah. And we sit a lot, and caregivers may do the same. If they're in someone's home, the person may not need constant care, but they may be sitting a lot. So the idea of taking a joy break is to simply get up and do something different. Now, if it's possible to go outside, it's great. Depending on the caregiving situation, it might not be, but this is something caregivers can even do at home. So I have a dog, Bella, who's equally sedentary. She sleeps a lot. And I have taught her the command, joy break, Bella. And she will jump out of her poof and we will just go out in the backyard. We're very lucky. We overlook kind of a canyon and we'll walk around the backyard for a minute or two. It's simply that idea of moving. Movement will help lift our emotional state. And if you can do it outside, it's even better because you're getting sunlight and fresh air, and it's good for you.
Thank you, Sally. I actually learned a lot from you today and hopefully can incorporate that to our caregivers. The music itself and just getting up and walking around from Care Indeed. I loved being able to talk to you about this today, and thank you.
Oh, it was such a pleasure. And, I will say it's delightful to talk with an organization that genuinely cares about caregivers. Thank you.
Thank you.